Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be starting a brief series on the Flyout game. For those of you who are not familiar with this game, it is a game where you build airplanes and helicopters and you basically fly them around. It's right in the name, so to speak. This is a really cool game. We've done some stuff on this in the past. There have been quite a few updates to it and since then, of course. And what I'm hoping to do today is basically just kind of break you through sort of why I do the things that I do and sort of give you something that you could possibly follow along with in it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to build a really, really lame airliner. And the purpose of that, of course, is going to kind of walk you through some of the stuff you're going to have to consider when you're designing these things, as well as kind of how I attack it. Now, the first thing I like to do is you have this lovely guy in this little seat here, and he's a little let's just say that's a little involved there as far as a little chair there. And unfortunately, they don't give us a lot of choice as far as what we can change to this. Like you've got all sorts of cockpit things. And you can actually come down here and you can remove the seat if you need to do it. And one of the reasons I actually like to do that is it makes it just a little bit easier depending on exactly what you're trying to achieve here on your particular view. All this other good stuff with the fly-by-wire, we're not going to really deal with this right away. That's just going to be a lot of work for us. Again, I don't know why there would be a throttle pedal. I'm not going to worry about it too much. But anyway, so first things first, we're going to put some body work on this. And then with the body work, we're going to move on to getting all the flight controls all warmed up. I try to do one thing at a time generally, and then kind of go back and get to sort of the fiddle with it phase. So let's do it. So first things first, I'm going to come down here, press the plus, and we're going to get ourselves a fuselage. Now, there's a lot of different ways we can do this, of course. You have canopies, which are really, really fun. We have these lovely little fighter cockpits and stuff like that, if we want to do something like that. And basically give them an F-18 right away, we could do something like that. Some people actually build their own. For the purpose of this, I'm keeping this real simple today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to go ahead and shut off symmetry, and I'm going to slam that right on him. And what you can see here is it's just kind of an interesting little exercise to scale here, because that's a pretty good size airliner cockpit. So I'm going to switch back to the arrow tool. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this so that it makes a little bit more sense here. And one of the things I recommend doing is if you look in the upper right corner, do you see how you can actually adjust the local position here? The reason this is so useful to us is because it allows you to basically make sure it's perfectly centered on our axis there. So I'm looking here, and that's looking pretty good like that. It's not the fanciest thing I've ever seen, but again, we're not trying to go complicated today. We can certainly go complicated, but I don't want to make it tricky at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to go test it out real fast. Launch without saving works fine for me. It takes a few moments to kind of boot this sucker up. And here we are. And the reason I like this too is it gives you an idea of what you can look at when you look out the window here. And I'm sticking my head out and taking a look around here, and it looks actually pretty good. This is about what I expected as far as the way this goes. We have plenty of little controls and stuff that we can play around with. We have fuel managers, and we have the names and all that other things. You can set your flight controls, and a lot of people like get rid of your flaps and all that stuff. Looking pretty good. So not much of an airplane yet, but that's part of the fun, as I like to say. So let's head back to the hangar and put some body work on this thing. So body work in this game, there's a lot of different ways to do it. If you're first starting out, I recommend kind of keeping it simple. Some people like to go really hard, really fast, and it gets complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself a fuselage 32 here, and what I'm going to do is you're going to notice there's a little snap point here, and it's actually really, really cool here because one of the things you think you can do is you can actually click here, and it will go ahead and generate that fuselage here. And now you're probably saying, oh, what happened to that fuselage that you just placed? And what it had done actually is it actually had created itself and attached itself where I just was a few moments ago. So if I actually click here, you'll see that I have a fuselage right there ready to go. And as a matter of fact, I think I have two fuselages because I'm incompetent like that sometimes. Let's see, do I have two? Yeah, I have two. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that one. I can actually just click on it. If I wanted to, I could drag it out of the way and I can actually just get rid of it. Let's see here. Do we want to do this? Yeah, we want to go ahead and get rid of that. Let's go back and click on that again. Oh, I know what I did. I had symmetry on. My apologies, everyone. So I'm going to do fuselage 32. I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to go ahead and click go. Put it right here. That looks pretty good to me. Nice. So that's basically what I wanted to do. And it snapped really nicely there. So I'm going to click on this. And of course, we don't want it to be like a tube like this. We want to make it like a traditional tube liner kind of a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and press the tab key. And when you press the tab key, it brings up this little editor that allows you to fiddle with it. Now, the cool thing is there's this actual little tiny diagrams here. And you can actually see by clicking on them what they are. Now, one of the things I notice is my scale here is 1.5. My scale here is 1. That means that if I go up to 1.5, I have got myself a perfectly matching fuselage. Beautiful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this into a nice boring airliner. Like I said, nothing too chaotic today. We're trying to keep it simple. Now it looks pretty good. Well, we switch over to, I like to call it tail mode. sort of a thing like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the extend. There's a couple different ways. We can actually add a loop or we could extend the fuselage. If I click on add loop, what this is going to do is this is going to give us a new point where I can click and actually click where I want to split the fuselage. I don't want to do that. I actually want to extrude the fuselage here. Now this is going to work really, really well for us. So go ahead, tab, just in case. I want to make sure I'm not goofing up. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is that point that I just created is point 1, but what I want to do is really take this one, and I want to use this as kind of like my little tail bit that's going to be kind of at the end here. So the way that I like to do this, because I'm being supremely lazy here, is I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and press the S key, which switches to scale mode, and I'm actually going to shrink this down to 0. And if you want to have a little fun here, you can actually come over here and just make this 0. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to bring my fuselage to a point, and you can see just like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab this, I'm going to raise this upwards here, and you can actually see how far up it is. I'm actually going to go 1.5, and now I know that I've got myself a little kind of funky tail here. Again, I'm not doing anything pretty, we're just trying to keep it simple. So what I'm going to do now is click on add loop. I'm going to go ahead and split this probably right about there. And the reason I want to do that is just to make it a little bit wider. And again, once you've done that, you can go ahead and reduce that little offset so it looks like it's relatively straight. That's looking pretty good to me. And then, of course, I will split one more time here. I'll go ahead and add it this way. What we're going to try to do is we'll probably try to shrink it kind of in the other direction as well. So again, one of the cool things you can actually do is go over here, and you can shrink it by specific zones. So if I want to shrink it like that, or I want to shrink it like that, that's all accessible to you. And again, I can see I went too far there. That looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, good enough. Good enough. That's my fuselage. Don't judge. It works fine. I'm going to press the tab key to go ahead and quit out of this mode. Again, there are other ways to do this. I'm just trying to go relatively straightforward, relatively quick today to keep it simple. So this is good. This is roughly what I want. Now, of course, a good time to go ahead and save it. Save as, let's see, airliner fail. Let's go ahead and do that. It's a fail. Oh, even better. Failliner. Love it. Let's go take a look at it in the sim. All right. Not too bad. It's actually pretty ugly looking. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, ready? Oh, look at this. This is actually gonna be so cool. Nice. I like it. I like it. Definitely a Failliner there. So we'll go ahead and open that sucker up. Okay, so next thing what I like to do is I like to start thinking in terms of where my wings are going to go. And there's really two parts of the wing that everybody kind of forgets. There's the actual lifting bit, and then there are the flight control surfaces. So when you design it, you have to kind of keep both of those in mind. Now, I'm going to do something very unconventional for this design here, for the sake of keeping it easy when we go to do the landing gear later. You'll see why. And I'm actually going to go with a high-winged design. Now, high-wing seems like, why would you ever do that? It's actually really straightforward. So I'm going to go up to lift. I'm going to grab myself a wing. You want to make sure your little symmetry is enabled down here in the bottom corner. And what I like to do is I just pick a spot. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. One of the things you'll notice is there's a red mode and there's not a red mode. And I'm going to go ahead and put it right up top here like that. Now, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different strategies for this. My personal favorite thing to do is to join them in the middle and then just kind of build across. Again, don't polish the cannonball, kind of a thing like that. So I have my X value, and I've actually set my X value to 0, which brings the two wings here directly on top of each other. And you can see that actually looks pretty good just the way that it is. And the other values are just a matter of kind of tweaking it until you get it kind of where you want on the actual airplane itself. So one of the things I've seen people do is they'll bring this up to 1.5, so it sits there right. Okay. Again, we're going to clean this up a little bit later. There we go, right there. That's what I'm talking about. Beautiful. So now we're going to build the wing itself. And again, we don't know where the wing is going to go yet. I know that sounds strange, but it's just kind of one of those things you have to start thinking in advance when you start designing it. Now, there's two fundamental ways to tweak a wing here. There's kind of the lazy way, and then there's sort of the you've made it too complicated. Why'd you do that way? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch to the wing editor. So I'm going to try to get above this. And again, I've got a handy dandy key. Press 7 on your numpad there. So I'm going to press tab, and it's going to give us the ability to go ahead and grab these points. And I do all sorts of nasty stuff here. It's going to totally stretch your texture and look terrible. That is perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make this a pretty simple sweep here. I, of course, would grab out my calculator and work out the exact angle that we'd have to sweep this at and all that other stuff. But for today, I'm not so stressed about it. Like I said, we want to keep this relatively simple for today. And just taking a look at that. I'll switch out of tab mode, switch back to wing mode, and I'm just going to kind of pull it back. And this is going to sound dumb. I'm going to pull it back until it looks like it's right. You can see that it's good enough. Good enough. And again, we're trying to keep this relatively simple. Now, when you look at this wing, of course, your brain says, but what about the leading edge? Oh, you're right. So one of the things I tell people with the leading edge, and you got to remember this because you'll forget, is you don't want to put the leading edge on it until the wing is the way you want it. Otherwise, it's going to make you absolutely insane. Trust me on that. It also makes the wing significantly wider, which is okay. And again, we can work out the wing loading and all that other good stuff later. Wing loading is basically going to be our stall speed. So I'm going to click on this guy real quickly here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put on a trailing edge here. It's going to be a pretty boring standard trailing edge. You can see it sort of chilling there. And do you notice this little flat bar here? Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. I always get the controls backwards. See this little guy right here? I actually recommend deleting that for now. It's going to make you crazy later. So if you come here and set this to none, it actually will hide it. That's going to make it a little bit easier for us to do some of the shenanigans we're going to be doing a little bit later on. All right, so now what we do is we do all of our flight surfaces. Now, one of the things you probably observe here is we can't put the flap down right here because you'll actually smack into your fuselage. So it actually makes it really easy for us for the purposes of actually kind of coming in here and correcting it. So I wish I could just miss it. I can make a carbon fiber. Let's do a carbon fiber wing. That seems like a lot of work. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in here and slice up this wing so we can go check it. But one of the things I notice is my wing is too short. And your brain's going, how do you know it's too short? Because your wing is generally going to be, your wingspan is roughly going to be your length, if you're looking for a kind of a quick formula there. So what I'm actually going to do is click on the wing again. I'm going to get rid of the leading and trailing edge. Press my tab key, and I'm actually going to correct it and actually make it a little bit longer here. And again, we can come back and play with all these things later on. We can put little lurks on them and stuff like that if we choose, but I want just a little bit more wingspan here because I do want it to be somewhat usable. That's pretty good. We actually got to come back just a little bit here. And we're going to grab the front, and we're going to sweep it just a little bit. Not bad, not bad. All right, let's go ahead and pop our trailing and leading edge on. Looks good to me. I like that. It looks not bad. Not bad. And if we want to be a little more professional, we could actually come in here and basically delete this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to split the wing up into smaller pieces here. And that's going to make our life a little bit simpler because we can kind of divide our wing based on what kind of control surface we're interested in here. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to go click on it again, go back to wing editor here, pressing tab. And you have this little button that lets you basically split the sucker up into tiny pieces. And this is pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that button. And we're going to go ahead and divide the wing into several pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. And this is going to be kind of my, I call this my flap region. And my aileron region is going to be right in there. I'm not going to do wingtip ailerons. I find that dangerous. Go ahead and hit checkbox. So now what we've done is we've taken the wing and we've split it into several smaller pieces. And you can actually see these pieces when I click across here. Now, the reason I want to do that is I really want to get access to the tips of my wings. So this right here is going to be my ailerons. And you can actually see that we got that on both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set these to be my response. This is going to be roll. Now, one of the problems everybody, of course, has is when they add roll here is that they forget to actually dial in how much roll it has. So I'm just going to say roll 1 seems to be pretty good there. And again, we can multiply that by like a negative number if we need to. But the cool thing, too, is if we go jump into the sim real quick, you'll actually be able to see that my aileron is just sort of hanging out and chilling there. Now, you probably also notice the fact my aileron is kind of going kind of sad. And the reason it is a little sad, of course, is on account of the fact that my lovely aileron, we have no electrical power on this thing. So, unfortunately, these have to be hydraulically boosted controls. We're not physically, like you can see I'm cranking on my controls right now. Not working so well for us, but that's okay. Like I said, it's a part of the fun, is how we like to say in aviation. So what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and head back to the hangar. And we can go ahead and continue working on our control surfaces. So that one's all set. So we're going to play with that later, of course. I'm going to come into here. This is going to be my flaps. When you're doing flaps, of course, you just want to be mindful of just how much range you can have with flaps. So just be kind of, like I said, mindful of this. And one thing I really wish you could do is you could come in here and like press the keys or something to make them like kind of go up and down. But when we hit up the sim again, you're going to notice here that this whole back edge of the wings, they're just kind of chilling there, kind of a thing like that. I have no, like I said, no electrical power or anything like that. So I'm not going to get that much control, but you can actually see that my flap did stick itself down just a little bit here. I don't know if this would work. We got a little bit. We get a little bit. So you can see my 10 degrees of flaps there. It's not looking terrible. And again, we can make flapperons too if we want to, but I'm just putting a little bit of flap on there just to get it. One thing you'll also observe is the fact that we have no control on this side. These are actually working perfectly fine. So one of the things we're actually going to have to do is set it up for the rest of my wing here. So let's go ahead and grab that one real quick. Flaps 10 wasn't enough. I'm going to crank it up. We'll do add response. We'll do flaps. We'll do 30. We'll grab my aileron here. This is going to be roll, and I think we said 1 or something like that. And again, we can take a look at this later on to get kind of like an idea of what the different ranges are going to be. We can come in here. Actually, let me put this up to 10. I don't think this is going to work, but I'd rather be wrong here. And it turns out I was only half wrong. So if you actually look here, you'll notice that on my left-hand side, my aileron is actually going the correct direction, but you'll notice on the right-hand side, it's going the opposite direction. So that doesn't work very well for us. So we have to actually set this one to be a negative. Remember, the one that lifts is the direction you're traveling in if you're ever confused about that. But I do want to see while we're here, let's go take a look at how much flaps we can do. Oh yeah, that's some real flaps there. I like that. I like that. It's coming together. It's coming together. All right, let's head back to the hangar here. So that's looking pretty good so far, and I like where we're going with this. Everything's looking pretty good. Let's go fix my boo-boo with the aileron real fast here. I'm going to click right here. I'm going to go ahead and set here roll. We're just going to set that to -15. It's going to give us a little better roll response, but like I said, I'm not worried about it too much. Looks good. Cool. So that should fix that problem. So now it's time to go ahead and put a tail on this thing. I know you're sitting here going, but you didn't tilt these down or anything. Relax, relax. One step at a time. Jeez, relax. All right, let's go ahead and throw a tail on this thing. So I'm a T-tail guy. I've always been. It's just my thing. So I'm going to go ahead and come up to here. I'll go up to lifts. I'll grab myself. We have a taileron, which is kind of fun. I'm a huge fan of wing. It's just simple. So I'm going to shut off symmetry here, grab myself a wing. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of click here. And when you do this, it's going to be a little derpy. Don't worry about it, though. Like I said, it's part of the fun. So I'm going to click that guy right there. And first, as always, I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my positions make sense here. Again, 1.5 makes sense. And then I'm going to switch over to my rotation tool. And I'm going to give this thing a handy-dandy little rotation here. Now, I'm at 5-degree intervals, so 90 degrees is vertical. So and now we have ourselves a tail. I wouldn't call it a very fancy tail or anything like that. But we're here just because it's fun. So let's grab that sucker real quickly. I'm going to switch over to my tab key here. I'm just going to extend it just a little bit. Of course, you're sitting there going, how do you know how big these things are? And the answer is I don't. I just do what looks right. All right, let's go like that and bring that in a little bit. I can tell you that's way too short. We'd have no control if we lost an inch on takeoff there. And that's looking pretty good there. I like that. So looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and click on my tail. I'm going to go ahead and quickly add in my leading edge and trailing edge here. I'll do my little leading edge. It looks pretty good to me. I'll put my little trailing edge. I'm going to shut off my little slide here. Some people like that. I don't. And we have ourselves a pretty good looking tail there. I'm just going to move it forward just a tiny bit. So this guy, of course, hanging off the back, that is now officially our rudder. Now, I know what you're saying. That rudder's too small. I agree. So let's go ahead and grab this, and I'm just going to shrink it just a little bit. Some people, what they'll do to make it easier is you can actually click this, and you can change the material here like that. And the reason people do that is it makes it more obvious where their control surfaces are. So like when they're testing things, you can actually come in here, set this to be fabric or something like that, and then it becomes really, really obvious, like when you're working with a particular item, or like you're not sure if you clicked on something right, and people like multicolor this, like we'll make these carbon fiber. It doesn't change anything as far as like weight or anything like that, but it does make it very obvious what control is moving when you're moving them, if that's something that you need to do. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and throw in our elevators. This is going to be the hard part. Turn on symmetry again. Grab ourselves a wing. All I'm going to do is I'm going to click right about here. Again, like I said, I'm a T-tail guy. Can't help myself. Can't help myself. I'm going to try to line it up as best as I can there. I'm going to go ahead and click right there. It looks pretty groovy. Let's go swing over to the tippy top here. Looking pretty awesome. Looking pretty awesome. Again, I'm just trying to get something that looks reasonable. It does not have to be perfect at this juncture. And if this happens to you, which it will frequently, there's a couple different ways to solve this. As you probably notice, if I try to move this one, they'd go like this. If this happens to you, one of these days they will fix this. What I actually do is I delete it. And the reason I delete it is it's going to frustrate me. So what I'll do is I'll actually come over to the regular airplane, like the regular fuselage like this, and I'll click. And what I've done is I've basically attached them to the regular instead of my rotated 90-degree piece here. Now, the reason I love that is I can still go like this. Like, nobody's got to know. Let's go sneak up here. Go like that. And again, we're just going to... we're looking for a 0 there on the X. And that looks pretty good. Now, some people are going to be like, shouldn't you make this a stabulator? You're right. You're right. I'm not going to, but you're right. All right. Let's go back to tab mode here. And all we're going to do is we're going to shrink it down a little bit here. And again, we can sweep the tail and do all sorts of goofy things like that. But I don't feel the need to do that yet. The first thing I need to do is get the control surfaces on it. Again, I'm pressing the tab key to switch between those real fast. So let's put on our leading edge and our trailing edge one more time here. Ah, nice. Very nice. I say it's a very nice indeed. Okay, cool. So we'll go back to tab key and I'll go back to sort of edit mode here. We're going to grab this and I'm just going to drag it to the end so it makes some visual sense. Grab this. I'm going to go pull it like that. So again, it makes some visual sense. And you know what? We might as well do this care. Might as well sweep the tail because reasons. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Again, like I said, we're not trying to go for perfect here. A lot of people go for perfect, and I showed you folks how to do things with blueprints in the past. If you want to go perfect, go perfect. For me, I just enjoy the process. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and tone this a little bit. We'll go with fabric again. It just makes it much more obvious to me where things are. And that tail is way too small. All right, let's go grab this and come this way. There we go. That looks pretty good. And again, we just need to give ourselves enough room on this tail that we can actually use it like a tail, but you know, we can't win them all. Usually your tail is about a third or to a quarter of the size of your wing there. So I can tell you right now, my tail is kind of tiny. All right, so what I might actually do here is I might go back to here, shut off the edges here. I know that's scandalous. It just took all that time to do that, right? So now that that's gone, let's go back to edit mode. Let's make it a little bit more reasonable here, because right now it's just way too small. Ew, that looks, that's hideous. Cool, let's use it. Go to standard, let's go to standard again. And of course, what does it do? It forgets everything you just did. That's, well, oh well. Go ahead and drag this out there. I'm gonna go grab this. I'm actually gonna go like this a little bit, just a little bit, not too much, not too much. And obviously this needs to be like this. And you're gonna need a lot of elevator authority. Like that's gonna be just kind of an issue you're gonna face here, but it's okay. Ugh, that's not my proudest work here. Let's see here. Shrink that in. I don't want it to be swept too much. This is, again, aesthetics. Aesthetics. All right, let's go ahead and I'll pop that material on there so it makes more sense to me. All right, let's see. Click on you. There we go. That's the one I wanted. We're going to set that, like I said, fabric, just so it's obvious what's what here. Okay. Fantastic. We're actually killing it today. I love how you can literally configure it as a rudder. So you just click rudder, just like that. I love that. Come up here. Ooh, got to click on this one. Click this one. Configure as elevator. Isn't that awesome? So now we have ourselves our two components ready to go. And we're looking pretty good on this side. Like I said, symmetry can be a little tricky in this game, so just be mindful of that when it plays with you. If you're having an issue like I'm having right now, you see how it's not letting me have my trailing edge. I'll click back to the original one and do trailing edge here. And if I click on this, I should be able to see, yeah, there they go. Now I can separate them. Just be careful with that because if you lose control, you only have half the elevator working or something like that. Unfortunately for us, as you can see, it just spoiled my hard work. So be careful, like I said, you'll run into that. It's part of Flyout. You just have to be very mindful of when it does stuff like that because it'll creep up on you. Again, my original tail, remember, was this one. I was building off of this one. So because this is the one that is symmetrically over there, it's just one of those things you got to deal with, unfortunately. All right, so that's pitch. That should be elevator, actually. That's a little strange that this is not elevator. That's weird. You did see me set that, though, right? I'm not going crazy here. Pitch is accurate. Fantastic. All right, let's go test it over in the sim real fast just to make sure everything's working. All right, let's take a look what we got here. So I'm looking here, and I can see my ailerons are now configured correctly. They look pretty good there. If we bring up our little flight controls here, we can actually set our flaps all the way up and down, which is actually pretty cool. But I noticed that my elevator control is completely reversed. Rudder's correct. I'm actually very happy about rudder. Rudder's absolutely perfect. And my elevator is reversed. This is like Xbox control rudder. That would make me insane. Probably the way we rotated and flipped everything 100 times. That probably didn't help. So I'll do minus 20. Come over here. We'll set this to minus 20 as well. And that should do it. Nice. We're actually going to increase this up to 30 degrees here. It's going to make it a little bit more responsive. Okay. We have ourselves Yakovlev? I don't know which one you would call it. It's my Failliner. That's what I'm going to call it. Okay, so this has been a pretty good length episode here. I think this is a great place to stop. Next time we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the other stuff. We'll add on some like wheels and we'll put on engines and all that other good stuff. And of course, we'll take it for a spin to see just how bad I really am at this, which, trust me, I'm pretty bad. And it should be kind of fun. Other than that, enjoy.